Chapter 6. The Night That Changed It All. A loud knock at the door nearly made Davy fall out of his chair. Daniel went directly to the door and demanded to know who it was.
It's Larry. Daniel, can we come in?
Of course,
said Daniel, easing up a little. It was the two officers, Larry and Ralph, who had been with Officer Bill when the kids saw them at the ballpark just hours before.
We have a few questions that we would like to ask you all, if that's okay. Judging by the TV, I'm guessing you have heard about Bill,
said Officer Larry. His square, hardened face seemed to soften a little. Ralph, a short, portly man, lingered behind with his head downturned.
Yeah, we just heard,
said Daniel.
He was one of the good ones, always was.
Daniel had a quick flash of a distant memory when he and Bill were laughing it up at a cookout from what seemed like a lifetime ago, and he winced at the thought of his death. He instantly regretted not spending as much time with his cousin as he used to. Bill had wanted to talk to him about something important about religion, but he had brushed him off. Now he wished for only one more chance to speak with him.
But we just saw him,
Davy gasped.
Susie and the boys must be devastated. What happened?
Lydia asked with apprehension. She attempted to control her emotions, but her heightened syllables revealed her concern for them. She put her arms around Davy.
Yeah, they are taking it hard. We've got some of our guys watching over their place tonight,
said Officer Ralph.
Ralph and I are investigating his death, and we came over just to ensure we don't leave any stone unturned. Kids, you were some of the last to see Bill alive. Did you notice anything else that was strange after the sighting at the park?
Asked Larry.
Yeah,
said Joel. His mouth felt dry as he stammered.
You were there when we told Officer Bill about the strange man who chased us to our car. But Bill said it was just Jim, the old town drunk.
Can you describe that man for us? Asked
Larry. He jotted down the details as Joel and Rachel recounted the man's twisted face and dark cloak. Davy looked down, realizing their cousins, Caleb and Levi, would have to grow up without their dad. Since they had grown older, they were not as close as they used to be. Baseball was the only thing that kept them in touch. Davy felt a sharp pang of sadness for them. He could not imagine what they must be feeling right now. Whoever was responsible should have to pay.
He gave us the creeps,
Davy blurted. He finally got the courage to speak about the man they saw.
And remember, before that, we saw a dark figure fall from the floating city into the cornfield. I bet it was that guy.
We'll look into it,
said Ralph.
You kids stay in tonight. Remember, we've put out a curfew starting at 9 o'clock.
What exactly caused him to die?
Asked Daniel. The officers had turned to leave, but Ralph looked back at his question.
I'd like to know what we're up against.
Ralph winced.
It's still under investigation.
Was it a gunshot wound, a heart attack? I'd just like to know if we're in immediate danger and how to prepare for tonight.
I'll put it this way, I've never seen anything quite like it in my 25 years on duty.
Ralph began.
His face was...
Larry shot Ralph a glance.
We can guarantee patrols in every neighborhood for safety precautions. You can go on about your regular business before 9 p.m.,
said Larry.
There's no reason to believe there are any other targets.
Both men stepped outside of the door onto the porch.
Thank you, officers,
said Daniel as they tipped their hats and headed toward their patrol car. Larry nodded at a figure sitting in a vehicle across the street as they returned inside.
Oh, Bill, who would want to hurt him?
Thought Daniel aloud.
I can't believe he's gone just like that.
I just can't imagine,
Lydia said.
I'm so sorry, honey.
She placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder.
I know that you two used to be close.
He was one of the first to make me feel welcome in this town. I hadn't talked to him in a while. I couldn't have dreamed that he would be gone like this.
He paused, lost in thought for a moment.
You kids stay inside, please.
He began checking all the windows and doors, and the others started to help. Joel and Davy had no memory of ever having to do this in their tiny neighborhood. They were slightly perturbed when Daniel added a few extra locks.
Well, everything looks secure for tonight. I think I'll go and rest a while.
They all echoed their good nights, and Daniel walked off slowly, his countenance downturned. Before going to bed, Daniel privately checked his gun in his and Lydia's room. Joel and Rachel busied themselves on their phones to call Caleb and Levi. However, they could only get a busy signal or no dial tone. Rachel tried calling her parents in Israel, but there was no answer. She wondered if they had any access to seeing their recent news in Indiana.
Do you think Dad is okay?
Davy asked.
Bill and your dad used to be as close as brothers. Do you remember going over to Bill and Susie's house when we found out about them being his distant cousins?
Lydia asked. Davy shook his head.
Yeah, she made the best chocolate chip cookies.
It'll take some time, but he'll be all right. When the phone lines get back up, I need to call Susie and the kids.
Lydia said.
In the meantime, Rachel, we need to get a place ready for you to sleep tonight.
As Rachel started to object, Lydia put her arm around her.
And no buts about it. I know how your parents feel about you staying with us, but I can promise that we will keep Joel under lock and key if that's what it takes to keep you here. We won't have anything improper going on under our roof, and we definitely won't let their daughter out on the streets tonight. Even a trip down the road makes me nervous at this point.
I guess there is no arguing with that then,
said Rachel awkwardly.
Good, it's settled. I'll get some sheets and blankets,
said Lydia as she went upstairs.
No messing around, bro,
said Davy, pointing his finger in Joel's face.
I got the message,
said Joel, waving his finger away. He noticed that Davy was joking a little more than usual. It was his way of dealing with sad or uncomfortable situations. Joel and Rachel trailed onto the enclosed porch as Davy peered out the window, making faces. Their house was quaint, and Lydia had planted even more flowers since Joel had been gone. Joel secured the outside door. The wooden porch swing creaked softly as the two sat down.
Mom and Dad will not be happy about this,
said Rachel with a serious look.
There's not much of a choice anyway. Just think of what Caleb and Levi must be going through. With what we've seen today and the curfew starting soon, we don't need to be out on the streets.
Joel paused. Rachel looked down, ashamed that she brought it up with everyone being upset about Bill.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound so.
Joel cupped her chin and brought her face up to meet his. Her blue eyes were a deeper shade than his own, like two glistening jewels gazing back at him.
No, you've been through a lot yourself. I'm the one who should apologize. My work has kept me away from you too long.
He longed to kiss her soft lips, but since they had a spy, perhaps at least two, judging by the parked patrol car, Joel played it safe by smiling and offering his shoulder. She leaned against him comfortably.
I don't know why your parents don't trust me,
said Joel.
We've promised each other to wait until after we get married to do anything.
They wouldn't trust a saint,
said Rachel, rolling her eyes. She intertwined her fingers into his and smiled. After a few months apart, Rachel felt overjoyed and relieved to have Joel back from his internship. He made her feel loved. Around him, she felt relaxed, and he gave her a brighter outlook. He did not make her feel tense and trapped as her parents had done, her mother in particular, throughout her childhood. Since she had found Joel and his family, Rachel had finally been able to laugh and truly feel happy. Her dark-complected shoulder rested against Joel's side. Joel wrapped his arm around her as they leaned back on the wooden swing. They could hear the muffled sound effects of Davy's game, although he did turn it down for their dad's sake. The sky had cleared and the sun began to set. The stars and the moon shone brightly. Joel found himself wrapping his other arm around Rachel, turning her to face him. She gently touched his crisp jawline and observed that his chin had just the right amount of prominence to highlight his masculine features. Rachel leaned in so closely that she could feel the heat from his mouth wisp against her cheeks. Once again, crickets started chirping, and suddenly,
Whoop, whoop!
Davy yelled through the window.
I'm gonna get that little turd,
Joel mumbled as he started toward the door.
Don't bother,
said Rachel, leaning in and pressing her lips against Joel's mouth. His cheeks flushed immediately, and he found that his lips could not resist responding to her rush of warmth that washed over him. More than anything, he wished they could have some privacy for once in their relationship.
Smoocheroo!
Joel and Rachel could hear Davy's exaggerated kissing noises from the window as they got up and returned inside.
That's enough, Davy. Someday you might find a girl you would like to do that with,
said Lydia as she returned downstairs.
Yeah, if he finds someone blind enough,
said Joel. Davy playfully threw up his fists and Joel lightly smacked the back of his head.
You're just jealous because you can't grow luscious curls like mine,
said Davy, rubbing his head.
Better than the shaved, butchered look.
Your generation seriously needs to quit perming their hair. It makes you all look like clowns.
said Joel with a sarcastic grin. Although he did not admit it, Davy became self-conscious over this remark. He secretly thought he would go back to his original fade in the back with a disheveled top.
All right, boys.
Lydia said.
I suppose we'll save the other desserts for tomorrow night. Your dad has already fallen asleep,
she said, gazing sadly toward their bedroom.
Rachel, here are some sheets, blankets, pillows. Whatever you need, just ask.
Lydia indicated to Joel and Davy to help unfold the couch bed. The family's attention made Rachel grin sheepishly.
Thank you, Lydia.
It's no problem at all. Daniel and I will be in our room nearby. Now, off to bed, boys,
Lydia said as she brushed off the boys upstairs.
Good night, and don't forget to say your prayers.
Lydia locked the front door and headed toward the bathroom beside her and Daniel's room, while the boys trudged off. After everyone went to bed, Rachel tossed and turned on the fold-out couch. What would her mom and dad say when they discovered she had stayed at Joel's house?
For parents who want their own lives back, why do they still want to control my every move? Why can't they just trust me?
She thought. She remembered what it was like the first time she had met them. It was flashes of memory, but she remembered a man with darker skin than hers picking her up from a rundown slum in India. Something terrible had happened, but she could not recall what it was, as if her memory was blocked. She remembered that her ride to the airport was rushed. Somehow, she thought he might be related to her, but she did not know how. This towering man had a stern look about him, and she remembered her tiny legs having the most difficult time keeping up with him. She was relieved when he passed her hand from his to her adoptive parents that she has now. Because of this memory, she had never bothered finding her biological parents. At first she had mistaken Ishani for her birth mother, but her memories were jumbled. Even now she did not know if she had memories of her biological parents. When she first met Ishani and Ivan, they looked so caring and were excited to have a little girl. She remembered feeling like a princess when her parents whisked her off to America in their big, clean house. They dolled her up with beautiful dresses and gave her gourmet-style food that she had never seen until that point in her life. They had loved her then, she thought. Rachel turned over, wishing things could feel like that between them again. Joel went to his old bedroom upstairs, relieved to see his familiar surroundings instead of the broom closet apartment he had stayed in during his internship in St. Louis, and the non-air-conditioned dorm room at IU. Lydia had neatly organized everything in his room. She decorated it with a Bible, computer, family photos, baseball trophies, and baseball cards. Joel remembered how she used to get annoyed at his dirty socks.
I would pick up every one of your dirty socks again if we could just have you home, Joel,
she had said during a recent phone conversation before he had arrived back home. Joel picked up his Bible and thumbed through it, wondering about his dad's mood earlier.
That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Romans 10:9.
Joel read aloud. This verse had been marked for years by his mom, but now there were new highlights on it. Joel looked around at the pictures of himself and Rachel with his family on his wall, and he smiled as he felt that Rachel had become part of them. He kicked off his shoes and socks and settled comfortably into his familiar bed. Then a thought turned in his mind. He pulled out the necklace under his shirt that held the beautiful golden ring his mom had recently given him. Its elaborate setting had a mixture of diamonds and amethysts swirling toward a dominant sapphire. The ring matched his watch as well, completing their set. Joel still could not believe their family had owned such expensive items when it came to jewelry.
Your dad gave this to me years ago,
she had said.
It had been your grandmother's, but now it's time that you have it. Rachel is a good girl, and it will fit her perfectly when the time is right.
Joel handled the ring gently, as the stones glistened in his bedroom light. There was a time when he had thought he would never meet a decent girl. Most of the ones he knew were either too stuck up or too wild for Joel's liking. Until Rachel moved into town. Her fascination with Joel had surprised him. People noticed when they got giddy and joked with one another at the high school lunch table. He would often time his jokes just when Rachel had taken a drink, causing her to spew some down her chin in laughter. Joel surprised himself by finding the courage to ask her on a date, something he had never asked anyone.
Do you want to go out for a sandwich sometime?
He had said nervously, his palms sweating.
I thought you would never ask,
she had replied sweetly. There was an innocence about her that Joel felt he needed to protect. She was smart, beautiful and adventurous. Joel knew he had found the one for him.
Rachel Michelle Cohen. That has a nice ring to it.
Joel said to himself. Now he had to figure out how to get permission from her dad, who was on the other side of the earth.
Once I get permission from her dad, how do I start the conversation with Rachel for a proposal?
Joel thought.
Hey, baby. How about you and me go and get hitched this Sunday? Or more appropriately, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?
He pictured himself sneaking the ring into a glass at a fancy restaurant, Rachel swallowing the ring, and some muscular, handsome man having to give her the Heimlich maneuver.
Total failure.
Then he pictured himself driving her down a beautiful country lane, saying,
Will you marry me?
She says,
Yes?
They kiss, and he runs the car into a guardrail, or worse, a cliff, leading to their instant deaths.
This will be a total disaster if I do not get this right.
Finally, Chester saved Joel from more self-torture. He came through the door wagging his tail, and immediately hopped up beside Joel.
There's my buddy.
Chester licked Joel's face and settled beside him, equally content to return to familiar surroundings.
Traitor!
Davy yelled from behind the wall. Joel grinned, tucking the ring safely back into his shirt.
Hey, he's my dog.
Just kidding. It's good to have you home, bro. We've all missed you.
Davy said as he peeked into the doorway.
Thanks, buddy. I've missed you guys, too.
Joel hesitated.
Hey, Davy, has Dad seemed different to you lately?
You mean about the prayer at dinner?
Asked Davy knowingly.
Yeah. He and Mom have been reading the Bible together with me more. It used to be just me and Mom, but Dad has been asking questions lately.
What kinds of questions?
Joel sat up on the edge of his bed.
At first I thought he was picking on her about the New Testament, but then I realized he wanted to ask more questions about Jesus and stuff. He usually joins in when she reads the Bible with me, which is weird, but a good weird, you know?
Definitely, that's good, Davy.
Yeah, and he's been a lot nicer lately, too, not getting as mad.
That's awesome.
Joel's face brightened. He smiled thoughtfully and hoped it was all finally happening.
I thought for sure that you were in trouble about the car when he first got home.
What do you mean? Who told you?
Asked Davy, grinning. Giving in to admission, he said,
I still don't know how he figured out that one, but I've learned my lesson. I almost got it stuck in the mud before he got home that time. Instead of yelling at me like usual, he just gave me a big speech about how disappointed he was.
I'm guessing he thought Mom would not cause that wiggle in his gear shift. Plus the extra mud tossed around the driveway, Davy. It's just a good thing you and the car made it back in one piece,
said Joel, giving Davy a playful punch in the shoulder.
I only took it down to the corner and back,
said Davy defensively, knowing that he should have never tried driving their dad's car in the first place. As far as they knew, their dad had never accepted Jesus, and the rest of them had waited their whole lives for this to happen.
It's good to hear that Dad's been praying and reading the Bible with you and Mom. Let's keep praying that he is saved.
For sure,
said Davy. The boys said an awkward good night, and both said heartfelt prayers in their adjacent rooms before falling fast asleep. Downstairs, Rachel also had fallen asleep. However, Lydia had not yet made it to bed. She was still in the bathroom saying her prayers privately. Assuming she was taking a shower, Daniel had fallen asleep as well. Finally, apart from the disturbing news about Bill's death, Lydia felt like everything in her world was coming together. Daniel had accepted Jesus, and the big announcement would happen on Sunday morning when he finally joined their family for Easter church service. Joel and Rachel were home. Her family was truly united for the first time.
We are all home. Thank you, God. Please help Susie and her family,
she had said aloud. She gazed at her wedding ring with its brilliant amethyst glowing in the night.